Another day, another blockbuster trade. This one has Jaylen Brown going to the Sixers, Paul George going to the Celtics. What does Tim Legler think of all of that? We're going to find out in just a moment on the All NBA Show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All NBA Show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. Legs, free agency kind of started slow, but the last 24 hours, man, has been insane. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. It's wild. It's wild. Like it's my my phone or my Apple Watch just vibrating constantly all day yesterday, all morning this morning. You're like glancing down at it, like what name's it going to be this time? These are some incredible movements that we've seen, particularly what this means in the Eastern Conference. Like we always look at the West. I feel like more often than not, like waiting for the blockbusters, like which Western Conference team is going to make that big move because it's so loaded at the top. It's not even close, the Eastern Conference and what's going on in the East, not just at the very top, but also some of these teams that are still kind of relevant, and they're trying to get a bite of that now and be a contender. So the movement in the Eastern Conference has been the story over the last couple of days.
The East is good. I'm looking at the East, and I'm saying there's a handful of teams that I think are both interesting and competitive. So I think that we're shaping up for a very good year in the Eastern Conference, and maybe even a little bit of balance between the two conferences this year, top to bottom. We're going to get into it, so let's just go dive right in. We're going to get Legs' in the second part of the show. We're going to get Legs' perspective on some of the deals we talked about yesterday, but we're going to start with the big one that happened just yesterday after we had recorded our show, and that is Jaylen Brown going to the 76ers, Paul George to the Celtics, along with a 2031 unprotected first-round pick. This weird pick in 2028 that is, likely to be very good for Boston. Another first, it can kind of turn into a swap or something else. 2028 second rounder, 2030 second rounder. So I don't know what your first impression is of this one, Legs. I think there is the fit, the fact that they traded to a rival that just knocked them out. Philadelphia and Boston, that's a big rivalry. They just eliminated them in a comeback, 3-1 comeback, Game 7. That just happened. It's so rare to trade in that scenario anyway, let alone a star player, and that happened. Or you could take the angle of the value that we anticipated Jaylen Brown being worth, almost got you Giannis. How many picks are you going to get? And then you get this return. All of those angles are very interesting to me, but what was your first thought? Was it one of those angles or something else?
I think the very first angle was, that's all you could get for Jaylen Brown. That's the first thing that jumped out at me. Like I understand we'll get into the whole dynamic of who they traded him to, because that's a whole nother scenario that blows your mind. I mean, it's just unimaginable that they would trade Jaylen Brown to a team like Philadelphia that knocked them out. Look, and that's not the rivalry that it used to be. Okay, but there aren't many rivalries in this league, but it's still a pretty good one. And in fact, with New York in there as well, like any of those three, New York, Boston, Philly, like any combination of those teams playing each other, it's about as good as it gets in the East as far as rivalries.
Yep.
So to trade them to them, but more importantly, for that, like that's what's shocking. I think that is really where most of the reverberation around the league, and just listening to all of the analysis of this, that's where people are most shocked. And it's also been reported that Jaylen Brown never actually formally requested a trade. Like he never went in there, because sometimes if that happens,
what can you do?
Now you've got a situation where it's more of a buyer's market, because now everybody knows, like, oh, they got to move him now. Like, because that's kind of what happens. That wasn't really reported. We kind of felt that was going to happen because he was dangled in the Giannis trade. That didn't happen. But this is all you get back for Jaylen Brown, a guy that's been a finals MVP, a guy that had the best year of his career last year, a guy that plays hard as hell every night on both ends of the floor. Really shocking that this is what you get back. A 36-year-old Paul George at the very end of his career, who's going to probably pencil it in immediately, probably miss 25, 30 games.
That's the part.
At minimum. Yeah. Right. That's coming. I mean, and if this is about the picks, okay. You know how I feel about that stuff. It's so impossible to know what that's going to turn into. I don't know what those are going to be. Typically for me now, the picks are more about using them as an asset to acquire a player.
That is what they are.
More than they are like, well, who are you going to pick? It doesn't have anything to do with it. It's use it as an asset to acquire something else. And now most people that love the Boston Celtics, even people in this industry that are fans of the team, are like, no, something else is coming. It has to be because there's no way you can make the argument they're nearly as good as they were now as they were 72 hours ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I think no question about it. I think the value is the interesting thing. I mean, first of all, I do think the rivalry part of this is, and you could say what you want about the rivalry, because you're right that it waxes and wanes, and it's maybe not at its height because there hasn't been the recent history, but there is very recent history in that they just played. It's so insane to think of losing that series the way you did and then making a trade with that team. That part it shows you how desperate they were in the position. So I think putting themselves in the position, publicly trying to trade him, everything that comes out, and then you do get into a spot where even if he didn't demand a trade, you probably just feel like, I don't know if we can go back, giving how we've handled this situation. But I think there's a second part that's equally as interesting to me about the value, and that is that this summer has been an interesting one just in terms of what do teams value. We're evolving into this new environment with the new lottery system, the new CBA and second aprons and everything. And I just think we're seeing a lot of teams trying to get off money or trying to change their system. It used to be big threes, then big twos. I don't even know if teams want that anymore. And that's why when you get a guy on basically a $60 million contract, yes, he's a good player, but how many teams look at it that say, we already have one max guy, we want to bring in another max guy, and then try to go from there. And I think a lot of teams are trying to move off from that. So in some ways, this was self-inflicted, but in some ways, I also think the new market is showing that teams are afraid of big contracts, long-term contracts, even when they're good players. That's at least my read on it, and it's why there's so many teams that can't get off money. There's a lot of teams trying to get off money, and they can't do it because nobody seems to want anybody that has a contract that goes out several years.
Well, I mean, there's enough guys in the league that have long-term contracts at big numbers. If somebody's going to deserve it, I think Jaylen Brown has played himself into that category. My goodness, what more do you want from a guy? I just look at a guy that expends that much energy defensively, that takes it that seriously, he never walks away from a challenge. They don't hide him. Yep. He guards whoever he has to that's in front of him. He averaged almost 30 points a game last year. To me, and we talked about this a lot, when Tatum came back last year, it was clearly and will always be Jason Tatum's team as long as he's there. We all get that. Jaylen Brown even gets that. And Jaylen Brown probably felt really good, man. He had that opportunity for whatever that was, 60-plus games where it was his team. And man, oh man, did he answer that call. And he basically changed the ceiling and how we view how good he was in the surprising year that they had. And it led to Joe Mazzulla being coach of the year and all of that, right? All of that stuff. And the guy's playing defense every trip. So if anybody's earned it, my goodness, it's this guy. And he won't be 30 till October. So he's still, in his 20s as we sit here and speak. He'll be 30 basically when the season starts. He's been pretty durable throughout his career. I don't know if anybody deserved it. It was him. And I just feel like they came to the conclusion this wasn't going to be a healthy situation going forward. Whether it's now or some point during the season or whenever that was going to be, the whole fact that they had him out there and they were willing to move on from him with everything that he's meant to the organization, I guess they just felt internally like there's no going back from this. But right. Man, you couldn't find another trade partner than the Philadelphia 76ers. Are you kidding me? It's the one thing that they needed to inject life into that, because look, even what they did last year, they beat the Celtics in 7 games. They got smoked in the next round. Right. And you're always hanging on Embiid's health, Paul George's health. They don't have enough. Now, maybe they do. And it's still going to revolve around Embiid's health if they're a contender or not. But look at their starting lineup.
A lot of talent.
If you have Embiid, my goodness, with that backcourt, young backcourt, Edgecombe's going to be so much better in his second year. And then you add Jaylen Brown, you have Joel Embiid still there. Man, I mean, and then you've got Dean Wade. So this is such an interesting development for the Sixers. It's the one thing you could have done to inject life into a rival in your own division, in your own conference. And it's another team now that you're going to have to deal with at a high level. And we don't know yet what Boston's going to do. But like I said, they're not as good today as they were prior to the trade. And that's what you're trying to justify to the fan base.
I think It's hard to spin this for Boston. I don't think we'll get to it in a second about maybe what's the most positive outlook. I'll ask that question in a second. But if you're Philadelphia, you don't have to spin anything. They were dead in the water. They knew their team had a ceiling to it. You have Embiid on a long-term contract, so it's not even like you can pivot quickly. You kind of have to find a way to make it work with this group. And getting Jaylen Brown, even though there's some risks, it is a shot of life. But here's the thing. What is this team now? Because it is a lot of talent, but how do the pieces fit? Edgecombe, Maxey, Brown, Embiid. Obviously, Embiid has to stay healthy. Let's just assume that for now. Let's throw that piece out of there. Those other three guys, are they like a good fit with each other? I kind of anticipate that they can be because good talent will always come together, but I don't think this is one that on like day one, it all just clicks into place. I think it will be a process for those three guys to figure out what the rhythm is to their offense, who touches the ball in what spots, and how quickly you move the ball and those types of things. So a lot of talent, but I actually think it will take some work for them to find an identity.
There's no question about it, because even, a guy like Paul George, he kind of filled that lane very nicely. He was fine being the fourth option. He actually thrived in it when he did play, but yet you still had the capability to put the ball in his hands. If Maxey and Edgecombe, particularly Maxey, was on the bench, then Paul George was your primary ball handler. He was their best perimeter defender most of the year last year. So, but he understood his role. Like, he was a rotational player. He wasn't a star anymore. And now you're bringing in a legitimate star that's going to play differently, higher usage. He gets the ball earlier in the clock.
Yep.
There's no doubt it's going to be a fit that's going to have to develop over time. I absolutely think it can. And the thing about Jaylen Brown, I've been so impressed about throughout his career, guy doesn't really say boo, man. He shows up with a hard hat on and he plays. And no matter what the circumstances are, they're going to figure this out. It's going to take some time. And in some ways, does it stunt just in the short term the development of EJ Edgecombe? Probably a little bit, because this isn't Paul George. This is a guy that's a 25 to 30 point scorer that wants the ball often and likes to break guys down one-on-one. He plays a lot in the mid-range area of the floor and gets to the rim. So you're going to have different scenarios offensively for Edgecombe and Maxey, but I think they're going to welcome that, because at the end of the day, you need talent to be able to get through the Eastern Conference into the finals and contend for a championship. You needed more than you had.
Yeah.
And they have it. And now it's up to Nick Nurse and it's up to those guys internally to figure out the best way that they can play together. And it's going to take a little bit of sacrifice on everybody's part.
And we even saw this last year with Embiid. Like the Sixers had a way of playing when he wasn't there that was very fast-paced and getting downhill and into the paint. And then when Embiid was there was a little bit of, you could see the ups and downs of when do we go to Embiid and slow it down and just space the court versus when does he get out the way. And I think they struck the nice balance at points last year, especially in the playoffs, where when it hit, you were like, man, this is incredible. They have two punches and you don't know which one's coming. But it was always, if you didn't read that situation right, the game would get clunky quickly between them. Jaylen Brown, I think, does add another layer of that, because now there's a whole other identity to kind of, throw into the idea there. So I do think that's why I say this trade is great, because Philly had nothing to lose. But I do think that there'll be some growing pains along the way from him, and their ceiling will be high. But I think the biggest thing here, Legs, is that what's nice about sometimes you have so many identities as a team, it's confusing. Sometimes you have a lot of identities that help you survive 48 minutes. And you can go to Jaylen Brown and Embiid, Maxey and Edgecombe without those other two guys, all of them together. You can get 48 minutes now of combos where you always have two threats on the floor, and you just have to work synergy between those. And I think that's what we're really going to notice about the Sixers next year when everybody's healthy is they have good, interesting combos for 48 minutes.
They were significantly better last year when they ran than when they didn't. And this now changes that, because they're going to be a much better half-court team with Jaylen Brown, because he wins one-on-ones. And the amount of spacing that's going to be there for Maxey and Edgecombe is going to be greater. He's a bigger threat. He's got greater gravity than what they had before. And they also, by the way, I don't think it's insignificant, the addition of Dean Wade, because they just continually played undersized lineups all the time. Now you've got a legitimate, Dean Wade's legitimately 6'9". He's a really good defender, super versatile, very comfortable just spacing out. He's not a high-volume three-point shooter, but he's more than capable of knocking down shots. But his energy, his effort, his 50-50 balls he comes up with, the number of guys he can guard, and he's legitimately in that 6'9" range as a power forward in this league. So it gives your team a different look that they can go to than what you saw in the past when it was always Paul George, Oubre, the two guards. Like that's who was out there with whatever center was available on a given night. This is a little bit of a different look for them. They're longer, and it's a little bit more traditional look with a guy 6'9" at the 4 and then a 7-footer in the middle.
Yeah, I agree. He is a big addition here. They still going to have to fill out their roster a little bit. They lose Grimes. They lose Oubre, which we'll talk about here in a bit. But so they are going to have to fill out now a full rotation, and they're not going to have a lot of flexibility to do it. But they do have the core guys. Here's a good question for you. Who's the first option in Philly? And does it change night to night?
Man, well, it's either Maxey or Jaylen Brown. I mean, and, look, when Embiid plays, I think it's been proven now. He did turn the Boston series around when he came back, and they didn't have an answer for him, and that was more their personnel issues than anything. That's not something anymore that you can just count on a ride, and he can't be your first option. If he is, I don't think Philadelphia is a contender.
But he's kind of always been, though, Legs. Really, he's always been when he's healthy, and this is the hard part about it, especially if let's say he plays 65 games next year. You're in, you're out, you're resting and stuff like that. I just feel like when he's in, I don't know if he's the first option, but I don't think he's like, okay, let me fall to the back now and just set the table for other people. And that's part of my point is I think Embiid, it's hard for him not to be the first option.
I think right now your kids should come to you and ask you to take them out and go toy shopping because you woke up clearly in a very optimistic mindset to just say Joel Embiid, if we can pencil Joel Embiid in for 65 games.
Okay, 65 was a little optimistic. 55.
What?
I was trying to say in a best case scenario. That's what I was trying to say, but okay.
Yeah, that's beyond the best case scenario, man. Come on, let's go. Let's start with.
Games,
let's start.
50?
No. I'm starting with. When you start talking about penciling in stuff, I'm going
Okay.
41. That's pencil.
All right, 41. Let's pencil him in for 41.
All right, but I like that. I like this. I like optimistic Adam. This is good, man.
I woke up in a good mood. What can I say?
You woke up in a great mood. It's a holiday weekend. You're in a good mood, man. But no. So look, I think they were at their best typically when Maxey was their first option. But look, you saw though the one thing about him. The higher his usage went up, he had one of his more inefficient years last year, and he's a very efficient player. But there were times, man, those shot attempts get up there in that 25, 27 range, 30, at times. Like, that's a lot of usage for him. So now I just think this makes all of those guys, if they can figure this out, so it doesn't have to be clear-cut, this is his team. It can be literally stretches of games, minutes at a time. Like right now, we ride this. You can hunt mismatches. You can do that now because you've got talent all over the floor at a really high level offensively. So we'll see what it looks like. I just know I can just tell you this. I have, as you know, I've talked about them all the time, my collection of friends that all love the Sixers.
Yep.
And I can't tell you how giddy they are about what happened with this trade.
Yeah.
And, typically they're very cynical about everything related to the Sixers.
Yep.
But in this case, first of all, they just got out from under one of the most untradeable contracts in the league.
Yeah.
Okay. It was literally like, well, because every sentence would start with, well, you got to beat and Paul George. Well, there's nothing you can do with those contracts.
Yeah.
They're not going to play much, and this is what you owe them.
Yeah.
They got out from under one of those. And they brought in another guy making a lot of money, but that guy's going to play 70 games.
Yeah, but that guy's very good.
Both ends. And he's going to average 30 or whatever. He might not average 30 this year, probably won't. He'll average 25. And when you put that with Maxey's 25 and Embiid's over 20, my goodness, man, that's a lot of firepower. And like I said, the most important element to me, you added a guy that you don't have to make up for anything defensively. You don't have to figure out, how do I get enough defense on the floor because I just added a 25-point score that doesn't guard. No, check both boxes, both ends of the floor covered. So I'm excited, obviously, about what this could mean for them. I remember when James Harden came to Philadelphia, right? And all the excitement that was around that. I feel much better about this one.
Yeah.
I feel much better about this day for Philadelphia 76ers fans than I did that day when they acquired James Harden, and they thought they were a contender the day they added him. This changes everything for the Sixers and how I'm going to view them this season.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is completely different. I will ask, though, a couple questions, though, just like pushback questions. Who do you think has to sacrifice the most out of the big four? And I'm throwing VJ Edgecombe into the big four out there, but who do you think is going to have to make the biggest sacrifice?
It better be Embiid. I mean, it better be Embiid. And to be honest with you, with adding Jaylen Brown, your best bet to keep Joel Embiid upright and ready on April 15th for an extended run is to play him 25 minutes a night. That's what they need to do, and they can do.
They need
that
a backup. They need a backup center than be better than what they have. I think if that's their plan.
Well, that's probably true. And they've got Adem Bona. They added Ariel Hukporti from New York. So you're right. You're probably right. But even if you play smaller at times and Dean Wade slides over and plays some five, I think you can do it. You don't need to play Joel Embiid 32, 34 minutes a night and think that he's going to be available for you in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So for me, the biggest sacrifice should come from him, and it should come from, look, he's still going to touch the ball a ton when he plays, but if he's playing 32 to 35 minutes when he does play, I think that's to me, you're doing your offense a disservice. I think play the guy 25 minutes and let him touch it when he's out there. Let him be the primary because he's still a dominant scorer. There's not a real answer for him, but he clearly doesn't have the lift. He doesn't have the explosiveness he once had, and he's not going to get that back. So to me, those are empty trips and empty possessions if you ride that too long, and you know for a fact the guy's going to break down at some point. So I think for me, it'll be him first and then Edgecombe second. Maxey and Jaylen Brown, for me, the message should be go be who you are. And hopefully it blends well with the two of you. We'll figure Edgecombe's got time, man. His day will come. Joel Embiid's day has already come. It's got to be about Jaylen Brown and Tyrese Maxey. They're the two guys that are in their prime and the two guys that are dependable and reliable, and you can count on them every night. I think that's where the messaging should be for Nick Nurse and this organization.
I agree, but I do think that is something just to monitor is how much can Embiid sacrifice? Just how much can his game alter if it's like, okay, I'm not the fulcrum of the offense. What does that do? And then I think for Edgecombe, I do look at this and say he had such a good year, and part of the good year was opportunity. They needed him to be aggressive. They needed him to have big games, including on opening night, if you remember, is right out of the package, off and running, be aggressive, be yourself. I don't know that he can be that now because they have so many other high usage players. And I do hope for, his own personal development's sake that he's able to navigate this well, because I do think it'll be a different dynamic for him. Last one I have for you on the Sixers, then let's go to the Celtics side. Nick Nurse in a good spot or a bad spot? Because it's good that you just got an upgrade to your team. You got something that is exciting. But also it is tough because now you have to be the one to figure this out. And I do wonder, I think he has a pressure year coming up to try to figure out how to put these pieces together.
I'll tell you what, though, man, if you ask Nick, trust me, I saw Nick Nurse a lot. I saw Nick Nurse a lot the last few years. Okay. Yes. And all the guy wants forget. He'll take this problem. I got to figure this out. This level talent added to my team and figure out how to make it work. He will take that challenge. You got to remember, this guy's already won a championship. So he's got that, man. He's already got that under his belt. And since he's been in Philadelphia, the nightmare of not knowing when guys were going to be available and what nights, including a year where they basically tanked an entire year because nobody played, including Maxey. And you're out there. They went through a stretch where Jared McCain was their best player as a rookie for like a month straight before he tore his ACL.
Not that long ago.
And I would see Nick Nurse, and he just, you could just see it on his face, man. He was just like, guys like that, just give me a chance with enough talent to go out there and compete. I'll take that challenge any day of the week. So I think he's past that point of feeling that level of pressure. He just, please give me more weapons so I can go compete against the top teams in our conference and in our league. And now I think they have it.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the Boston side here. Obviously, this seems like a very difficult trade. Like if you would have just guessed if you said middle of the season last year when the Celtics were in 1 or 2 seed and you said, hey, they're going to trade Jaylen Brown this offseason, guess what the package is for? People would have guessed significantly more. So now they enter the new phase where I just don't think they are contenders as presently constructed. You get Mitchell Robinson. I like him. He was big for the Knicks. We'll see what happens. By the way, Sixers, Celtics make a trade. Knicks Celtics, have a player swap, even though it's just in free agency, which is interesting, those three teams. But I love the Paul George fit when he's healthy. I actually think it works because he can play their system, catch and shoot, play off the bounce, and be probably more aggressive than he was in Philadelphia. I like this, actually. I just don't think he's going to play very many games because he never plays very many games. And the Celtics need guys to play games. They collect some assets. I don't think there's any way to spin this as a positive. But I do look at this and say, where are they going from here? To me, this feels like maybe this is a gap year of sorts. You're going to be competitive, and you hope to use the assets you collected to flip things and build a team for 2028. But as presently constructed, I would say I actually like the fit. I wouldn't trade it for Jaylen Brown for it. I like the fit if you told me they were going to play 70 games. I just don't think that's going to be anywhere close to that.
Look, it's not like they're terrible now. They still have Jason Tatum. They still have Derek White. Paul George is a good player. It's not like they're going to be awful. You still have Peyton Pritchard. You still have Sam Hauser. You still have Keita, who had a breakout year last year. You re-signed Jordan Walsh. He was a valuable player. You have Gonzalez. Like, you've got guys. You added Mitchell Robinson. You have Baylor Schreiber. They're not going to be terrible. I think the shock waves are simple. That's all we got back for Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
That's going to last, man, unless this team just takes off. They jump out of the gate and like the rhythm is there, and it's clearly they got this one star now that's everything is running through, and Tatum looks great and he's averaging 30, and like they're rolling and they're right there at the top of the East, and maybe some people will forget about it. But I think right now the shockwaves are just this guy at 29 years old had his best year of his career, and he's a finals MVP, and he plays both ends, and that's all we got back. So that's going to last for a while. But look, it's not like they're going away. Boston Celtics are still going to be a very good team. Now, I do have a question about Mitchell Robinson. Like, I don't think Mitchell Robinson necessarily is a starting center.
Yeah.
And because I don't know that his conditioning is good enough. I don't know that he's going to be able to stay out of foul trouble. I don't know if the whole, free throw situation, if teams utilize that more often, it disrupts their rhythm. And then for it, all you got to do is miss 4 in a row. And coaches are, you're going to see Mazzulla figuring out a way to get him off the floor. So I don't know what the impact yet is going to be for Mitch Robinson. It might look exactly like it did in New York.
I think off the bench,
18 minutes, flip games some nights because you get 7 offensive rebounds in a short period of time, block a couple of shots, and that'll be like your thing. Because even with the Knicks, his minutes, his contribution like waned as the playoffs progressed. It wasn't what it was during the regular season. It wasn't what it was at the height of his best in New York. It got less and less and less as the stakes got raised and teams started to figure out ways to really incorporate fouling him a little bit smarter, things like that. So I'm curious to see like what that looks like. Is he your starter, or is it still Keita? You bring him off the bench for 20 minutes a night? I'm not sure. But look, a lot of the faces and names look exactly the same. They did add Mike Conley, which was an interesting one. Mike Conley, about to start his 20th season, is one of my favorite players of literally the last 20 years. Mike Conley's one of my favorite players in the league. But we all know Mike Conley's way past that point, like even being a reliable spot-up shooter. So I don't know exactly what that was about, but they're not going away. They're going to be there in the mix in the top half of the Eastern Conference. I just don't know exactly yet how high that their ceiling is going to be.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I think the thing we were getting on with Mitchell Robinson, he's kind of a specialist, meaning that he's not very versatile. He has a narrow skill set. He's big. He's going to rebound. He's going to put pressure on rebounding. But when he's on the court, you're kind of limited offensively. You're going to play one way, even defensively, the way you're going to guard pick and roll coverage. But that's why I agree with you that I think he is kind of a paid like a starter and maybe even starts, but I still think his minutes are going to be low. I don't think it'll be 18.
That's okay. I guess that's what I meant more than anything. Maybe he does start. He doesn't play traditional. He'll never play traditional starter minutes.
25 minutes.
At most.
20, yeah.
He might be 22, 23 minutes a game, so you're still going to need those other guys. But look, I just think they've got some guys on that team that are accomplished. They've got a really good coach. They're not just going to all of a sudden, because of this move, and it seems like they got the short end of the stick on this deal and no one could quite understand how that's all they could get. they're not going to just go away. The organization doesn't believe in that, and they still have enough talent to compete. Competing and contending are two different things, and that remains to be seen.
I think the Celtics are going to still be extremely good, especially in the regular season. The question is, how are they in the playoffs, which will be a completely different question. But I would bet on them surviving. And part of the reason is, Derek White had a bit of a down shooting year last year. I'll bet you that bounces back. And then Peyton Pritchard, Peyton Pritchard was fun because he's a good player and can flip a quarter, like at any given time he can get hot. But some of his best games came when a guy was out and he stepped into a bigger role. Now the question is, can he sustain that? Because I feel like he elevates in importance to that team a lot. And now he becomes, if this is the team they get, and we'll see, there are rumors they're in on like a Trey Murphy or something else, that would change the whole dynamic. But if this is more or less the team you're approaching with, Peyton Pritchard becomes like their third most important player, fourth most important player, somewhere in there, and they're going to count on him to be able to scale up his role to be like a nightly scorer and a nightly problem. And I think that is, like, at this moment at least, like the forefront of how I analyze Boston.
I think the key to the whole thing, honestly, for their ceiling, if they, assuming, let's just assume they didn't make any more moves and this is what they're going forward with, is what you said about Derek White. Was that an anomaly? Or is that signs of an older guard right now who'll be turned 33 this year? He had a terrible shooting performance in the Philly, actually most of the year from the 3-point line. He was just under 40% 3 years in a row. He was 32 last year. So I'm curious, Adam, let's look up at Derek White, 15, 20 games into the season. And if his shooting splits look like they did traditionally, then I'll say, yeah, you know what? He had some stuff. He was bothering him last year, his wrist, and he just wasn't quite the same, man. And you need time off sometimes to get your body fully right. But if you look up, they're 20 games in and he's still shooting like 31% from the three. And like, he's wildly inconsistent with that. I think then you start to look at the guy and say, you know what, this might be now what it's going to look like for him going forward. So I think the key to all, because he can play at an all-star level. Yeah. When he's shooting well, because he's such a great defender, he's so smart, he's so like just a guy you can count on. But that shooting has to be there.
Yep.
As like he might be your second best option, like offensively. So that to me is the key to the whole thing. Was that just a year? It was a one-off where he didn't feel right all year, never got in rhythm. Can he find that again?
Yeah, I'm betting on yes. That's where I'm going to place. I mean, I would almost, in some ways, I would love to swerve on this and think the Celtics will end up okay. But the one thing that is undeniable is that they did not get good value. Whatever you think of Jaylen Brown, he's worth more than what they got. And so even if you try to talk yourself into the Celtics can pivot from this and get a Trey Murphy or get somebody else, even if you do that, you still say they didn't get great value for Jaylen Brown, and that becomes a loss. And by the way, it makes you wonder, what was their contingency plan? Because they were so loud and so, everybody knew they were going after Giannis. You don't get Giannis. And then it almost feels like they were in scramble mode to, well, now we can't go back. We're at a point of no return. And what's out there? And what was out there was trading to your rival for not very good return. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, I want to talk about the Eastern Conference and how you just see it shaking out at this very moment, this early moment. And talk about Kawhi Leonard and where he changes the equation for the Toronto Raptors. We'll get to that, as well as Lakers talk on the other side. What dreams did you have when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up? How about now? Are you thinking about starting your own business or side hustle? Shopify is the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Shopify even powers the All City merch store. Shopify's got you covered with website creation, product descriptions, email and social media marketing, and more. They also have AI tools designed to help you maximize sales. So if you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/allcity. That's shopify.com/allcity. It's also summer season, and you guys all know that moment, the one where you realized you left your favorite pair of sunglasses at the beach, on the roof of your car, or at a gas station 3 states away. Well, I've been there too, but I got Shady Rays, and they've changed the game. They're sunglasses that are made for real life. They're good-looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. And here's the wild part. If you lose or break them, even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements. So you can wear your sunglasses without fear on hikes, at concerts, on a boat, wherever. Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. Go to shadyrays.com and use the code ALLCITY for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Back here, segment 2 of the All-NBA show. I'm with Tim Legler. If you guys are enjoying the show, make sure you're subscribed. We're doing this several times a week. We also have Mark Stein, and we have Jason Tim. So for at least another couple weeks before the season of All-NBA show wraps up, we got you covered. And there's a lot going on here in the next couple weeks. A lot of free agency. We're going to have Mark Stein, I believe, Sunday night. And maybe we have a LeBron update by then. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Legs, Kawhi Leonard is, since we've last talked, he is now with Toronto. We saw rumors of this happening. It's finally happened. Kawhi goes there. The Clippers get unprotected first-round picks in 2031 and 2033. Pretty nice, 2 first-round picks. Second-round pick in 2030, 2033, and 2027 first-round swap. I know how much you love those second picks. And now you're looking at a team that just swapped Brandon Ingram for Kawhi Leonard. I feel like on paper, I liked the Raptors last year. I thought they had kind of maximized what they had given their talent. What they were missing was a superstar. Now they have one that's a familiar face. I actually love this deal for Toronto. I know they paid the price for it, but I think that they are now a underratedly good team.
I do too. I think that this is an upgrade, even though he's 35. And you talk about penciling in guys for 65. Guess what? He played 65 last year. So I'll take you penciling in him for 65, which I think would have been a reach if he didn't just pull it off. But the guy had a sensational year. He had an all-league caliber year, and he is still an elite defender. It's not start to finish 36 minutes of like shut down corner type defense, but when he needs to, he can still be an elite defender. Scotty Barnes obviously is already in that category. I like this a lot for Toronto. What they had wasn't enough. I don't think you were going to take them seriously as a contender. Kawhi Leonard changes that, because here's the other thing about Kawhi Leonard. His production is not going to drop off in the postseason.
Yeah.
I don't care who they play or how many rounds. Kawhi Leonard is going to do his thing at an efficient level when you have to have it from him, assuming that he's healthy. And I think that, for me alone, makes them a team that I can buy into more than the version that, took the Cavs to 7 games last year.
I think so too. I mean, first of all, I thought the team was good last year. The Raptors might have maxed out on how good they can be, but now I look at them and I say, you have a lot of physical wings that can handle physicality and dole out physicality. Scotty Barnes, very mobile, very strong. You can't bully him. Kawhi Leonard, you can't bully him. RJ Barrett, if he stays, is a big-bodied guy. They just have a lot of size. And then you go to like even quickly, Pirtle, Shed, and then I know your guy, and it's my guy too, Colin Murray-Boyles. That's a lot of guys that I think can handle what we just saw in the playoffs. A lot of teams have to ask themselves, can we handle how physical they're going to allow the playoffs to be? And I think they do. They have guys that, to me, are not going to fall apart from that. In fact, they're going to be big enough to dole out some of that on the defensive end. They're going to be big enough to wall off the paint. So to me, I think they're a team that's designed for where we just saw the playoffs, where the league is headed. I think this team is designed for that.
I totally agree with that. I just think it gives you, gives you the presence of believability, right? Because of his resume, what this guy's accomplished. And, he did it there, man. Came there for 1 year and won a championship. It's one of the ultimate, just sort of, raise the flag about what you are as a player, is what he accomplished in Toronto the first time around. Now he's back. They got to be loving life. I think they liked their team last year. That was an elite defensive team. All year, top 10 defensively, good part of the year, top 5, top 6. So they got that end of the floor figured out. Their offense was a little bit streaky, and I think Kawhi Leonard answers that, man. And now you have a clear identity. Again, one of his most special qualities, because of his strength and balance, and he's such a dominant mid-range player, he's going to be efficient even against the top defenses. And even when he's accepting a lot of double teams, somehow, some way, at the end of the night, you look up, the guy's got 25 to 30, and he's doing it almost all the time, over 50% from the field, while also giving you 85 from the line, and including pressure free throws that you have to make in the postseason. And then he can guard anybody on the other end of the floor. Love it for Toronto, man. And it's just another reason why the Eastern Conference is just so much more interesting than it was.
They also re-upped Darko, their head coach. So, showing faith in him, did a great job with that group last year, and they're going to have even more excitement and enthusiasm. Right now, I know this is
real quick. Can I want, because you mentioned, what were the picks? It was like 2033.
Yeah, I got them right here. Let me pull them up. It is 2031 and 2033 first round picks. They do have a first round swap.
Just so we're clear on that, I looked it up. The 2033 class. These kids are 12 right now, by the way.
Hey, they just traded a 12-year-old.
Benjamin Young is the number 1 ranked player, and he's a 12-year-old. That's in the class of 2033. Just got braces on, so that's good. So that'll turn into something. Yeah. You know how I feel about these picks.
My daughter Ellie, man, she's class of 2036. You know, like these picks are about to get traded too. You never know. You never know.
She's already, and I saw that screen roll game. She's already on UConn's
I'm telling
radar.
you, man. I'm telling you, man. She definitely is. Let's go to another team real quickly. Actually, before we'll get to the Pistons. We talked a little bit about them, but John Collins signs out there, 3 years, $51 million. They got Isaiah Joe. They got Kevin Huerter. They lost Beef Stew and they lost Tobias Harris, who went to San Antonio. We talk about that here in a second. They're incomplete. I feel like they still have moves to make, but I'm surprised that some people are very down on Detroit. I actually like what they've done so far, and I've seen some people thinking they haven't gotten better. I would count on this team actually being better, and there's still more to go.
I agree, but they are better. And look, John Collins shot 40% from the three last year, limited volume, but he can step out and make a shot. So your spacing is going to be better. He's a talented offensive player. And then for me, Isaiah Joe, talk about a great pickup. I told you when I got that news, remember I texted you, I said, wow, because to me, you talk about a team going out and being able to fill that very specific need, because we saw Duncan Robinson repeatedly up close get face guarded. He still found ways to get shots and be effective, but they were basically daring guys like Thompson and Holland to shoot the basketball. Your spacing was terrible. You go out and you get a guy like Isaiah Joe, 42% last year from the three, pretty much every year he's in that category. He also a very good defender. You're not giving up anything. He can guard the ball, pressure the ball. They also drafted a Corey in the first round. He's another guy. You can put the ball in his hands. Very, very fast in the open floor. Another ball handler when Cade's off the floor. I think he's going to play as a rookie. You've got Paul Reed, who is more than serviceable as a backup. I know you lost Stewart, but Paul Reed played great for them last year whenever he got extended playing time. So I look at them right now, and I just think that they're a better team. They've got better, more capable offensive players around Cade Cunningham than what they had a year ago. But they still have guys like Thompson and Holland that can get it done defensively as well, and Isaiah Joe. So for me, I don't know how you would look at the Detroit Pistons and not think they're better than they were. You know, the big thing hanging over them is just the Jaylen Brown situation. And it's like what we all watched at the end of the year. It was like, oh my goodness, like what happened to this guy? You know, he was a third-team All-NBA player that could not find any way to impact the game offensively for like 2 series. It was kind of shocking to watch
2
that.
of them.
So that's what's hanging over them more than anything. Like, what was that exactly? What's the answer for it? Did teams figure out how to scheme for them? But guess what? If that same scheme is employed that was last year, which was take a great defender, put him on one of the non-shooters, and let him just hover down by the edge of the lane and just wait. Just exactly what they did with Evan Mobley. They did the same thing with Suggs. Those guys just camped out and waited on the short roll. There was nothing to be had. Well, guess what? You add John Collins, you add Isaiah Joe to the mix, Duncan Robinson. It's harder to do that.
Yep, 100%.
It's harder to play that way because you've got not just one shooter on the floor. You might have one on each side of the court. So it's a little bit of a different feel now for teams that want to play them that way. But there's no doubt that is hanging over their organization. What the hell was that he went that long a period of time and they couldn't solve that to get him back on track of what we watched all season?
What's interesting about the Duran situation is I just talked about how I'm not sure the formula anymore is that you have 2 max contracts or huge contracts because there's so limited space to build a team around. And I'm looking at this situation and thinking you never want to piss off your own guy. But Jaylen Brown, there's not really a market at the moment for him. You know, he thought maybe the Lakers would throw something at him. He thought maybe Brooklyn, some of these other teams. Those offers seem off the table as those teams have filled out their roster. And if I'm Detroit, it's a fine line to walk between you can really set yourself up great for the future if you squeeze Duren for everything he's worth. Try to lower that number as low as you can. We've never really been in an environment like this where the clear number 2 guy for most of the year, all of a sudden you get into a position where it's like, we can squeeze this guy and just not pay him very much. But I think that's where you have to get. Peyton Watson's going to be in a similar situation in Denver in that he's unfortunately a restricted free agent in a moment in time when people just don't have the money to spend and don't want to take risks. And so Denver's best option might be to squeeze him. And I think for Detroit, I said this last year, teams are thinking old school about, we're going to slow build this over the course of 7 years. Throw that out the window. Eventually you're going to pay Asar Thompson. Duren's about to get some money. I think Detroit should go all in this year because they have an opportunity to go all in. And at this very moment, I think their team is good. If you overpay Duren, I worry about their future. But at this moment, they have an opportunity to really compete in this upcoming season and maybe win the title. And I just think you have to take advantage of it.
I don't know, man. I'm looking at it like this. I'm just saying the guy's 22, had tremendous amount of growth last season. I know that it's a bad taste in your mouth. I mean, the guy was just under 20 points a game, over 10 rebounds a game, like 65% from the field. Those numbers dropped to 10 and 8 and 51%. That's a significant drop off. And it's nothing that you can even overcome offensively. Where's that going to come from? So I understand it was shocking, but he's 22. And I just think that you're in a position with a guy like that and the chemistry he has with Cade Cunningham too, that he's developed. He just seems like a great dude. Like he's just a good guy to have around. And you're just banking on his talent at the end of the day, and whatever that was, figuring out a way to be a lot better to get back to that situation. I don't think they can afford to lose him.
I don't think they can afford to lose him either, but I'm saying read the market. There's no market.
But you're saying don't pay him a dollar more than you have to.
What other option does he have? And that's the point. I'm saying we're in this weird.
No, you're right. That's just smart business for the Pistons.
But guys don't always do that. Like guys will often say, hey, you had a bad year, but you're our guy. We're going to pay you, and we're just going to hope it works out. And I think in this new CBA, teams are realizing, look, man, this is a war now, even between your own players. Just try to squeeze and see what you can get. And somebody asked, what do you mean by go all in? I do mean like a Cam Johnson or a Trey Murphy, something like that. Another player that is available right now that you might have to give up some assets. Like you might not have to give up players, but you give up some assets to acquire, and your team all of a sudden we're talking about their realistic chance of coming out the East, which brings me to, it's early legs. We're going to have a different answer for this question next week, so you're not held to this. But at this moment, how would you rank the top 4 in the Eastern Conference? Because I think that's actually a harder exercise right now than it was a few days ago.
Let me pull this up real quick so take a look. So are you asking me like the top 4 from a year ago, or are you saying who are the top 4
right now going forward? Like what would you project? And I'm not saying regular season. I'm really just meaning title contention. So forget regular season wins and losses. Where do you think the title contenders rank in the East?
I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. It's impossible to be able to sort that out. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I've got way more questions than anything solid in my mind about how any of this stuff is going to look. Yep. Right? Miami is obviously gotten themselves into a situation now. You have to take them seriously. This was a team, they were 10th last year. Are they going to be a top 5 team in the East? Do you believe?
Miami, yes.
Okay, so I agree with you. Detroit will still be there.
Yeah.
I think the Knicks are going to be there.
Yeah.
I think
Knicks are number 1. I mean,
they
took
lost some hits, Robinson. But the continuity of their starting 5 alone should probably put them at the top.
I agree.
I don't know that means that they win the most games in the regular season.
I agree.
And I don't think that they feel like they need to.
This is title contention, not regular season wins.
So you're going to have Detroit's going to be there again. Detroit's going to be in that, upper 50s to around 60 wins. Boston's going to be north of 50 wins. Miami's going to be in 50-win category. Philadelphia's going to be in the mix there. Do you think Toronto is in the top 5?
To me, Toronto, I want to put them second. I want this to be my hot take. I mean,
that'd be a hot take.
They were very good this last year. I know they took Cleveland to 7, and you have Kawhi Leonard now. That's what they were missing, was a guy you could go to in those moments. I just think, to me, I look at it and I say they're built the way I like a team to be built in this modern era. They have a lot of dogs, and they have some one-on-one scoring that, to me, I might go New York, Toronto, and then after that it gets even harder. I mean, we have to wait and see this is why I say it's incomplete. This will change next week. But then you get that Philly, Boston, Detroit, Miami group where it's like it really depends on what happens over the next week and how those teams fill out their rosters.
I think we know those teams are ultimately going to be there. I'm actually kind of even more interested in some of these other teams that were a great story last year.
I agree. Atlanta.
Like, did they? Atlanta's a great one. Charlotte.
Like,
are those teams that, because Charlotte went through some significant changes here. They got rid of LaMelo Ball. Miles Bridges isn't there anymore. So you're going forward with Kobe White now as your lead guard. It's going to look different, but you still have Knipple. You still have Brandon Miller. You look at what Atlanta did. They went out and they added Aaron Wiggins. I think that's a really nice pickup. Kingston Flemings is a guy that people love. That, how much he's going to play. I don't know. He's a rookie. He's 19. But so I look at those two teams more than any. I'm like going, well, man, you feel like they were on the rise, and then Toronto goes and does this. Philly does this.
Yeah.
Well, Detroit gets better. Miami, you're like, what about those two teams now? Do those two teams now just kind of like they stalled because of what these other teams did to be so dramatic in their additions?
Don't forget about the Pacers, right? Like they were artificially bad last year. Pacers back in the mix.
We didn't even know they're back in the mix. They're back in the mix, man.
And they got a good trade for Kelly Oubre, by the way, who is an interesting player. I just think he's a really good player and makes them better. And then, by the way, has about a wild card in Washington. Like, we don't know what they're going to do with Anthony Davis, but I'm not saying they're going to win a title, but just in terms of a team that could find themselves in the playoffs and a tough out, we'll see where they go, but I think they belong in there.
I saw that their front office came out and said they're not even listening to trades offers for Anthony Davis. So they're planning on going forward with DeBonsa, Trae Young, Anthony Davis, Alex Sarr. They got some other lottery picks on that
George.
team.
Yeah, they got guys,
yeah, exactly.
Man.
Look at it. Exactly. Trey Johnson, looking at that group, I'm curious to see how that plays out with Anthony Davis and his motivation and his health and whatnot. And, do they try to revisit that by the trading deadline? We'll see. He's going to have a chance to write that script.
You say with your chest, we're not trading the guy, and you get to December and okay, he's not trying for us. We're willing to trade him now. We'll see if we get there. But on paper, they're competitive out. So the East, man, big winners of this offseason so far for the intrigue factor. Let's go to the West, though, to wrap up, because the Lakers, man, they had a bizarre couple days here in my estimation. I think Walker Kessler's really good and has that's a great second draft guy, so to speak, and that I think his upside is higher than he has shown. But what they gave up for him is insane. You almost mortgage your entire future now based on him being, your guy, which again, I like him with Luka. I think it works. Austin Reeves, Kessler, Luka is your big three. They gave up a 2031 and 2033 first round, as well as swaps in 28 and 2030. They got Mamu. They got Quentin Grimes, Colin Sexton. Look, in any vacuum, any of these moves I like, other than the price you pay. And now I look at it and say, is this the team they're locked into for the entire season now? Because I don't think it's going to defend, and I don't think it makes a lot of sense.
They're going to struggle defensively.
A lot.
Mightily. I think that, look, this is the post-LeBron Lakers. This is the Luka Lakers, and this was what they were going to become the day they acquired him. Didn't know when that was going to be because LeBron is the one that kind of now determined that for everybody because of his decision. So this is now Luka's team moving forward, and they're trying to now every decision they make is shaped around how does this fit with him. I don't know that there's enough defensive protection for him. And if you look at the team that he excelled with in Dallas that went to the finals, they had a lot of defensive protection for him. This team does not have that. You don't even have a guy like Marcus Smart there now. Who was like one of your best options in that regard. Yeah, Walker Kessler's a really good rim protector. He played 5 games last year. He played 5 games. I'm not going to hold that against him. He's young and he had a year with an injury. Okay, it is what it is. And in the limited time that he played, he was like 14 and 10, 11, couple of blocks. He's a really good player, young player, and he's going to be fitting well with Luka as a lob threat. He's a last line of defense type guy. I'm talking about what you need to guard out on the perimeter, what you need to guard to keep the ball out of the paint in the first place, and that this doesn't look like it. Look, they're going to love Quentin Grimes. JJ Redick's going to love Quentin Grimes. That guy plays hard.
Will they? Because I love Quentin Grimes, but I'm sitting here thinking Quentin Grimes is good as an energy guy, plays some defense, 2 ways. If you look at their roster, I think he's starting. I think it's just going to shake out where he's starting, and his role will be to take on the other team's best player. He's a good defender. I don't think he's take on the other team's best player for 36 minutes. And if he is, do you get the offensive side of that from him? That's why I don't know about Quentin Grimes there.
What's shocking to me is you might be right about Grimes, and that would be for LaRavia. I'm surprised as you sit here now. You look at the depth chart; they still have LaRavia penciled in as their starting three. He looked like a guy that they had lost. Not only had he lost confidence in himself, they had lost all confidence in him by the end of the year. Now, is that just you kind of go, okay, new year, reset, there you go, because when we would go see the Lakers and talk to JJ earlier in the year, he always was raving about LaRavia, how smart he is, and he's a great cutter, and he plays hard, and this, that, and the other. But then when it got time, when everything was on the line, they did not want him on the floor, and he didn't look like he wanted any part of the offensive end of the court. So I don't know if he's psychologically going to be in a better place, but you might be right. It might be Grimes, and maybe that's their best lineup because Grimes can score, but he really can defend too. That might be – and actually I'd probably like that team better, like just looking on paper, rather than the Austin Reeves, Jake LaRavia, Jared Vanderbilt combination. Yeah. Like give me Quentin Grimes in there for LaRavia. Let's just like that on both ends of the floor better. So we'll see how it plays out. But this is all about shaping around Luka, and I don't know that they've got some pieces probably to better fit offensively with him. I don't think they've got enough defensive infrastructure around him.
I agree. And they've traded a lot of flexibility. Like going forward, they're going to have fewer moves to make, fewer levers to pull. So we'll have to see what happens. All right, let's go to the Super Chats. Let's see what the people are saying here. What do we got, Atticus? First one comes from our guy, Psycho Blue. He says, B-Ball Cthulhu thinks analytics guys have completely lost the plot. Boston probably had better offers from other teams for JB, but they said no because the offers had guys with bad PER. Hoopers hoop. I'll say this, that it has been a conversation that I've largely just tried to ignore because we've had this same conversation for 10 years about analytics. I don't know if that's why Boston took this deal. I think Boston didn't have a lot of deals. I know Denver was rumored to be there. I just don't think there was a lot out there because teams are very scared of committing to long-term money unless they feel it gets them over the hump. A lot of teams are good, but did Jaylen Brown get them over the hump? Giving up a lot of assets to get him and then being stuck with it. If it doesn't work, you're stuck with it for 4 years. I just think teams are so scared of that right now.
People in this industry who do at a really high level that are super connected and dialed in and do this for a living. That's all they do all day long or talk on the phone to front offices. And those people were saying 4 or 5 days ago that he was going to be moved for 50 cents on the dollar in terms of value because there just weren't deals to be made. So you're 100% right, Adam. That's what this was. They were going to take the best deal. It wasn't going to get better as time went on. Yeah. I think that's how they viewed it. I don't know if I agree with that, but because you just never know like what could happen, down the road. But I think that's how they felt. Like this isn't going to get better. And the more we are not getting deals we like, the more every other team around the league knows that. And now their offer's not as good as it would have been. So it was going in the wrong direction, and they went ahead and pushed the button. I think the most shocking thing of all to me is that they would make that move with
Philly. That tells you they were not taking this deal for analytics or whatever. It tells you they took it because they had to. They were like, this is by far the best thing we're getting offered. So we'll send him to our rival. Now you got to look
at that guy. It's just like Philadelphia and how they feel every time they played Boston for the last decade with Jason Tatum. Because all they had to do was draft Jason Tatum. And they traded the pick, and they ended up drafting Markelle Fultz. Yep. Danny Ainge traded down and got Tatum anyway. Yep. It was one of the greatest coups in history.
It really was.
And and Philadelphia fans talk about it all the time. We got to watch that dude. How many 4 times a year for 10 years? Now you got that's what Boston's going to be feeling about Jaylen Brown, however long he stays in Philly.
Yep. We'll see. What else? What's next here, Atticus? Jack Reacher says, Adem Bona is a terrible basketball player. Embiid is always hurt. What options are there for a quality backup for when Embiid is hurt?
First of all, I'm not going to let you slander Adem Bona like that, okay? The guy's not a terrible basketball player. No, he's not skilled at all. Yeah. I agree with you. Doesn't have good hands. Doesn't catch the ball very well. Can't shoot at all.
Block some shots.
The dude has an incredible motor, energy, and I saw him. And I called games last year where Adem Bona in his 12 to 15 minutes helped flip a game because he does a lot of things that nobody else wants to do. And he's always playing at 100 RPM soon as he takes his sweats off. Guys like that have tremendous value. So I'm not going to let you call him a terrible basketball player. That's not true. He's not a skilled offensive player at all. We all agree with you to that extent.
Yeah, and I don't know that outside of a handful of players, I don't know that there's a lot of great backup centers that you spend resources on. They have a roster that they're spending a lot of money on. You're going to have to get really cheap guys around. I just don't know if you're going to spend money on backup center, but maybe with Embiid's health, it would be worth it. What else we got here? Based Swoop says, Books won't dare open the 76ers with shorter title odds than Boston. They are absolutely still contenders. I think he's talking here about Boston. I mean, of course. Look, Boston knows how to win games, man. They'll figure out a system that works for these guys as soon as.
And here's the thing. Here's what they have going for them. As bad as this trade looks, and as much blowback as they're going to get, let's just go down the list and look at what these other teams are looking at. The Detroit Pistons were a 60-win team. They didn't have nearly enough offense to compete and contend. Okay, maybe they answered it, maybe they didn't. We don't know. The New York Knicks are a bona fide. They're in a different category. Cleveland Cavaliers basically running it back. And that's a team that we know that in the playoffs have not been strong enough mentally to get it done. And they're not really any different dramatically in any way. So they're running it back. They've got issues. Toronto Raptors, yeah, we see that. Look, we both like it. Did that make them automatically a team that's like favored to win the Eastern Conference? Of course not. Not right away. Atlanta, Charlotte on the move. Philadelphia, man, you're still waiting on Embiid's health. So, and the Miami Heat, they added Giannis and bam, certainly they're playing themselves into the top four. The rest of the roster has to be filled out. So there's so many question marks across the board for all of these teams. Of course, Boston is still going to be listed as a contender. There's no question about it.
Yeah. What's this next one? I think it hurts my feelings. Sam Vecini fan page says, any shot the Celtics are preparing for Jokic. We're not talking about this, Legs. We're not talking about it.
No. not when you were so optimistic. You said we're going to just pencil in 65 games for Joel Embiid. You're in too good a mood to start talking
this guy
about
ruined
Jokic
it.
Going anywhere. No. Don't even entertain that. Atticus shouldn't have popped that up on the screen.
I can't believe he did
on a
that.
Holiday weekend.
He's a Celtics fan, so I know that's why he did it. I mean, in all sincerity, man, this is the beginning. People have asked me, is this the year where Jokic is just in every trade rumor? And the answer is yes. If he's not signing his extension, has a player option after this season, that's what happens. Whenever a player is not extended, you start wondering where could they possibly go, and teams would prepare for that. So maybe that's part of Boston's plan here, or at least it's a happy accident for them. And then the speaker says, don't mention Indy. We like being slept on. Don't tell. He probably put this one in when we brought up Indy at the end there, but
listen, but that person, whoever that is, has to be fair and acknowledge the fact that I was very, very much on the Indiana Pacers bandwagon and leading that charge way before they made a run to the NBA Finals.
Yeah,
always brought them up every chance I got, and I'm going to continue to do that. The only reason you're right, they slipped my mind.
Yeah,
in that conversation we were having, because they were 14th in the East last year. Man, they took a year away from the NBA.
Yeah,
but they are going to be back in a big, big way.
Yep, I agree, man. And it'll be interesting. Like I said, the East, I got to say, man, it does seem like these new anti-tanking rules have worked, because I think when you look at the East, usually you can pencil in 5 or 6 teams and just throw them out the window. Not the case, man. Top to bottom, it'll be interesting. I think the NBA is going to be interesting. And I think this weekend is going to be interesting. LeBron James kind of stirring up the market right now. We might get some traction. I'll be back with Mark Stein on Sunday night, and my hunch is we're going to have just as much to talk about then as we did every other day this week. We hope you enjoyed it, everybody. For Tim Legler and Adam Mares, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you next time.
We all silly like the mayor.